Imagine a wedding day. The flowers are perfect. The lighting feels warm. Guests are smiling like they're watching the beginning of a fairy tale. The vows are spoken clearly, almost rehearsed. Everyone claps at the right moments. Everyone believes this is the start of happily ever after. But look closer, not at the smile, look at the eyes. Because inside the mind of someone who's about to marry a person they don't truly love, there's a very specific kind of silence. Not peaceful, not calm, it's suppression. It's the sound of a rational mind overriding a screaming heart. We're raised on a simple story. Love leads to marriage, marriage leads to happiness, and if you're lucky, everything works out. But for millions of people, marriage isn't about passion. It's about stability, security, family pressure, time running out. It's about choosing the person who makes the most sense on paper. Because sometimes the fear of being alone feels heavier than the fear of being unloved. And here's the tragedy. From the outside, it looks like you made it. From the inside, it feels like you disappeared. So why do smart, self-aware people do this? Why do people tie their lives to someone who doesn't spark joy in their soul? And what happens to the human mind when it's forced to live a quiet lie day after day, year after year? Welcome to PsychoScope, where we explore the hidden psychology behind human behavior. Today we're diving deep into the psychology of marrying someone you don't truly love. Not to judge, but to understand the invisible forces that push people into settling and the emotional cost that follows. Because sometimes the most painful loneliness isn't being alone, it's being married and feeling completely unseen. Before we go deeper, take one quick second. If you enjoy psychology stories that reveal uncomfortable truths, hit like, subscribe to PsychoScope, and turn on notifications. It helps the channel grow and lets you stay connected with future videos. Now let's continue. To understand why people marry without love, we have to break one big myth. That love is the main reason people get married. Historically, marriage was never about romance. It was a contract, a survival strategy, a way to protect land, status, safety, and family bloodlines. Love became part of marriage much later, when life became safer and people gained personal freedom. But even in 2026, that ancient survival instinct still lives deep inside the nervous system. Psychology points to several powerful forces that push people into loveless marriages. One of the strongest is something called anuptaphobia, the fear of staying single. You may not hear that word every day, but you felt it. There's a quiet social clock ticking in the background of life. By 30, you should be settled. By 35, maybe kids. By 40, a life that proves you didn't fall behind. And when those milestones get closer without the right person showing up, panic slowly rewrites your standards. Your brain stops searching for happiness. It starts minimizing risk. You stop looking for a soulmate. You start looking for a candidate. Are they stable? Are they loyal? Do they have a decent job? Will my family approve? Do we want the same future? Love becomes a checklist. I may not feel fireworks, but they're safe. And for some people, safety isn't just comfort, it's a drug. Especially for anyone who grew up with chaos, poverty, emotional neglect, or instability. When you've lived in survival mode long enough, romance stops feeling important. What you crave isn't passion, it's relief. A stable partner doesn't feel like a love story. They feel like shelter, a fortress against the unpredictable world. Then there's another trap. It looks healthy on the surface. Value alignment. You meet someone who agrees with you about money, family, religion, politics, and goals. You work well as a team. You don't fight much. Everything makes sense. Your mind starts negotiating with your heart. Look how compatible we are. Love will grow. But often, love doesn't grow. It simply exists. And that's where the quiet conflict begins. From the outside, it looks like maturity. From the inside, it feels like emotional exile. Here's what most people never realize. Many people don't marry without love because they're shallow or desperate. They do it because their nervous system was trained, sometimes since childhood, to misunderstand what love feels like. That hidden system is called attachment. Attachment forms early in life. It teaches your brain what love looks like, what it costs, what you have to do to keep it. So when adulthood arrives, many people aren't choosing partners based on connection. They're choosing based on familiarity. If you have an anxious attachment style, love doesn't feel calm, it feels uncertain, like something you must earn. So when you meet someone consistent and available, it feels like rescue, not desire. Rescue. You're not thinking, do I feel chemistry? You're thinking, they won't leave. If you have an avoidant attachment style, the trap is different. Deep intimacy feels dangerous. Being fully seen feels suffocating. So you unconsciously choose someone you don't fully love, because emotional distance feels safer than vulnerability. You get closeness without risk. Then there's trauma. If you grew up with chaos or emotional neglect, your brain can mislabel signals. You confuse drama with chemistry. You confuse anxiety with attraction. You confuse peace with boredom. So when you finally meet someone safe, your mind says, this is good. But your body whispers, this isn't love. And right there, without realizing it, many people make lifelong decisions under the influence of their past. It's not that they don't want love. Sometimes they simply don't recognize healthy love when it arrives. So they choose what feels controllable. They choose security. They call it love. Until marriage slowly exposes the truth. And here's the dangerous part. Settling rarely looks like settling at first. It looks responsible. It looks mature. It looks like choosing peace. Sometimes it even feels like love. So how do you know you're not choosing someone because you desire them, but because they reduce your fear? Relief feels stronger than excitement. Your body avoids intimacy. Touch feels forced. You feel lighter when they're not around. Not because you hate them, because your nervous system finally breathes. You hide parts of yourself. Your deeper thoughts stay locked inside. The future feels emotionally gray. It looks stable on paper, but empty in your chest. The relationship runs on schedules, bills, groceries, kids. Everything works except connection. And you start fantasizing about another version of yourself. Not another person. Another you. The you who feels alive again. If any of this feels familiar, and it doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It means your inner world is telling the truth. Because love isn't just compatibility. Love isn't just stability. Love is aliveness. And when a relationship requires you to shrink, numb out, or disappear, that's not peace. That's emotional survival. Once the wedding is over, once the photos are posted, once the honeymoon ends and the guests go home, something quietly terrifying begins. Reality settles in. And for someone who married without love, the first psychological battle isn't with their partner. It's with their own mind. Psychology calls this cognitive dissonance. It's the mental pain that happens when you're forced to hold two opposite truths at the same time. Truth number one, I promise to love this person forever. Truth number two, I feel nothing when they touch me. That contradiction creates pressure, and the brain, desperate to reduce discomfort, starts building defenses. You rationalize, you tell yourself passion is childish, and that chemistry fades anyway, that real love is duty, that this is what adulthood looks like. And for a while that story works, but your body doesn't believe your story. The silence comes back, just in different forms. A tight chest, random irritation, emotional numbness, a low-grade sadness you can't explain. Then comes the deeper cost, loneliness inside marriage. Most people think loneliness comes from being single, but the most painful loneliness is lying next to someone and still feeling unreachable. This is the loneliness of the unshared self. When you can't share your real thoughts, your deeper fears, your playful side, your vulnerability, you start cutting pieces of yourself off. Slowly, quietly. Conversations become transactional. Did you pay the bills? What's for dinner? Who's picking up the kids? Not angry, not dramatic, just hollow. And that's how a marriage can look perfectly fine from the outside, while on the inside, one person is slowly disappearing. Here's something most people don't understand. You can't logic your way out of a relationship your nervous system doesn't feel safe in. Because even if your partner is kind, even if they're loyal, even if they've done nothing wrong, your body still registers emotional deprivation. And emotional deprivation is stress, not loud stress, quiet stress, the kind that never ends. When you live year after year without real connection, your nervous system adapts the way it always adapts to long-term discomfort. It either stays activated or it shuts down. Some people become chronically anxious, restless, irritable, oversensitive to small things. Their sleep breaks. Their appetite changes. Their mind won't slow down. Other people collapse inward. They don't feel sad enough to call it depression, but they don't feel alive either. This is functional depression. You still go to work, still smile in public, still handle responsibilities. But privately, you're exhausted for no clear reason. You lose desire, you lose curiosity, you lose color. And then something even scarier happens. You stop trusting your own emotional signals. You start thinking, maybe this is just adulthood. But no, this isn't adulthood. This is your body keeping score for a love you never received. When a core human need goes unmet, especially the need to feel emotionally seen, your brain doesn't just accept the emptiness, it searches for substitutes. Because the hunger for connection doesn't disappear just because you signed a marriage license. So people cope in 3 common ways. First, indifference. This is the path of least resistance. You lower your expectations to 0. You stop hoping for romance. You stop fighting for intimacy. The marriage becomes a roommate arrangement. Shared bills, shared responsibilities. On the outside, everything looks peaceful. On the inside, life turns gray. Second, displacement. If love doesn't exist inside the marriage, you pour your energy somewhere else. Work becomes the addiction because success makes you feel valuable. Or your children become your emotional center. You become the perfect parent, not only for them, but because you secretly need someone to need you. Third, seeking. This one is misunderstood. People think it's selfish. Most of the time, it's starvation. So the fantasy life begins. Old flames on social media, late night what-if thoughts, romance novels consumed like oxygen, emotional affairs with coworkers, because one deep conversation feels like water in a desert. Sometimes the substitutes get darker. Porn, alcohol, shopping, gambling, anything that creates temporary sensation. They aren't always bad people. They're often emotionally malnourished people trying to feel alive without destroying their lives. So why don't they just leave? From the outside, it looks simple. If you're unhappy, walk away. But psychologically, leaving a loveless marriage isn't just a decision. It's the collapse of an identity. Because once you've invested years, money, family approval, shared friends, maybe children, your brain activates something called the sunk cost fallacy. I've already put so much into this. I can't let it be for nothing. The longer you stay, the harder it becomes to admit the truth. Then comes shame. Quiet shame. The shame of feeling ungrateful. The shame of breaking vows. The shame of being the person who couldn't make it work. But the strongest chain of all is this sentence. I'm staying for the kids, and sometimes stability does matter. But here's what people avoid facing. Children don't just learn from what you say, they learn from what your relationship feels like. If a home is emotionally cold, they absorb it. They normalize it. They grow up believing love is something you tolerate, not something you experience. And sometimes the child becomes the emotional substitute, forced into providing comfort, meaning, even companionship. That's called parentification, so the marriage survives on paper. But the emotional cost gets passed down like inheritance. Every loveless marriage eventually reaches a fork in the road. And contrary to what most people believe, there aren't 2 endings. There are 3. The first outcome is companionate marriage. Both partners accept the lack of passion and build something else. Friendship, teamwork, routine, shared goals. It's not a movie, but it can be stable, sometimes even comforting. For some people, this is enough. The second outcome is silent hell. Resentment slowly rots into contempt. Small things start triggering rage. Chewing, breathing, the way they exist. Safety turns into a prison. The home becomes emotionally toxic, and over time the mind starts breaking under the weight. The third outcome is parallel lives. This is the quietest tragedy. No big fights, no divorce. Just 2 people living under one roof like strangers. 2 separate worlds in the same house. And here's the warning sign. When respect dies, silent hell isn't far behind. Because you can survive a marriage without passion, but you cannot survive a marriage without respect. So what do you do if you recognize yourself in this story? If parts of this feel uncomfortably familiar, there are only two real paths, and both require courage. The first path is staying and rebuilding. This only works if there is still respect, if there is safety, if there is basic goodwill. Because love can sometimes be relearned. But it doesn't start with sex. It doesn't start with romance. It starts with friendship, with honesty, with emotional presence. Start small. Have weekly conversations where both of you speak without blame, not arguments, truth talks. Share what you feel instead of what they did wrong. Rebuild emotional intimacy before expecting desire. Learn each other again, and if possible, get professional help. Couples therapy isn't about finding a villain. It's about rebuilding connection. Sometimes two people don't need to separate. They need to be reintroduced. But there's the second path. Leaving with dignity. If the marriage has turned into numbness, contempt, or emotional harm, don't just escape. Prepare. Build financial stability. Set boundaries. Create a co-parenting plan if children are involved, and allow yourself to grieve. Because leaving isn't failure, staying invisible is. Life is short. It's better to be alone and authentic than together and slowly disappearing. Here's something important. You don't have to hate your partner to leave. You don't need a dramatic reason. Sometimes the truth is simple. This relationship is costing me myself. And that's enough. If you're listening to this while lying next to someone who feels emotionally distant, if you feel empty in a relationship that looks perfect to everyone else, please hear this. You're not broken. You're human. Your nervous system is responding to emotional absence. Your heart is asking for connection. And that doesn't make you selfish. It makes you alive. Some people stay in loveless marriages for decades, not because they're weak, because they're afraid. Afraid of being judged, afraid of hurting others, afraid of starting over. But what nobody tells you is this: starting over hurts, but staying stuck hurts longer and often deeper. Real love doesn't make you shrink. It doesn't make you numb. It doesn't make you disappear. Real love expands you. It makes you feel seen. It makes you breathe easier. It feels like home inside your body. And if you've never felt that, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means you were taught to survive instead of connect. That can be unlearned, slowly, gently, with awareness. At PsychoScope, we talk about psychology not just to understand behavior, but to help people reconnect with themselves. Because awareness is where healing starts. And if this video spoke to something inside you, you're not alone. Before you go, let me ask you something. Do you think most people settle because of fear or because of hope? Write your thoughts in the comments. Your story might help someone else feel understood. And if you found this meaningful, share this video with someone who might need it. Sometimes one conversation can change a life. Thank you for watching PsychoScope. Take care of your heart, and remember, you deserve a love that feels alive.